If you know me, you know I'm a big advocate for Linux and all things open source. Well, if you follow Linux at all, you've probably heard the news recently about changes that were being made at Red Hat, and they just released a blog post that kinda doubles down on their reasons for the things that they did. So Red Hat is a big company, and the product that they produce is an enterprise version of Linux. Linux for business, basically, is what Red Hat is in the business of. So Red Hat also has a version of their software that is open source that anyone can use. And that's called RHEL, and anyone could basically use that, make their own distribution of Linux, distribute it however they want. It was freely open source, and there were some operating systems that depended on that. And now Red Hat has basically dialed that back. They've basically pulled all of that code off of the public domain and are only hosting it from their own Red Hat stream, is what they call it. Basically their own repository where you can only get this version of Red Hat through them and not through those third parties anymore that were making their own versions of Red Hat's underlying operating system. That's the best way I can put it. Maybe someone smarter than me in the comments can explain it a little bit better. I'm not saying that I'm in favor of Red Hat at all by any means, nor I am saying I'm on one side or the other, but I just kind of wanted to explain to you kind of what was going on and kind of how I feel about the subject. So Mike McGrath, the VP of Core Platforms and Engineering at Red Hat, addressed some concerns that Red Hat is moving away from its open source roots. He reinforces that Red Hat is still committed to the open source development model, contributing all their code upstream, which benefits the entire community. He emphasizes that Red Hat isn't simply taking upstream packages and rebuilding them. They wrote their own code to enable new features and fix bugs, then spent countless hours backporting patches to older code, a task he describes as Herculean. Take that however you want. One of the main points of contention in the community revolves around Red Hat's decision to restrict access to certain portions of its code. McGrath explains that this isn't an attempt to close off their work, but to sustain the production of their open source software. In this blog post, he takes a firm stance against rebuilders who simply repackage Red Hat's code without adding any value. He states that Red Hat no longer sees value in supporting these rebuilders. Basically, Red Hat is dancing around the words, but they are closing off their software to these what did they call them? Rebuilders. So these rebuilders include Rocky Linux, Alma Linux, CentOS, Fedora, Oracle Linux, ClearOS. Those are all platforms that are built on top of Red Hat's infrastructure. And those are going to be greatly impacted by this, obviously. And from Red Hat's point of view, they see this as, we're doing all this work, we're using all this labor, and people are actually profiting off of it, and are people that are working hard to keep this free side of Red Hat available. And basically they're trying to say that they're being taken advantage of. We're the little guy and we're being taken advantage of is kind of how they're trying to form this. So obviously they were met from the open source community with backlash because the open source community, they use these operating systems. A lot of people use these operating systems. My company that I work for used CentOS for a while, and now they've gone away to Ubuntu. As you can see, like some small businesses benefit off of Red Hat's code and some of these distributions that fork away from it. So the fact that Red Hat is so disconnected from their open source community, not their paid customers, because obviously this was a win for the paid customers, because they're basically saying we're going to stop focusing on you freeloaders, we're going to focus on our paying members. So there's two sides to this, right? There's the corporate side, Red Hat side, where they're saying we need to stop these freeloaders from using our software, so we're going to close it off and make more money essentially from our paid users. And then you have the other side of the average everyday user of some of these operating systems that benefit from Red Hat, and they basically may not have an operating system that's supported anymore tomorrow, or whenever that, metaphorically tomorrow, and that sucks. And so if you want to know what side I'm on, I'll put it very simply. On this side, you have the non-vulnerable, wealthy Red Hat customer that's paying them lots of money, which isn't their fault at all. The paying customers, this isn't their fault. But Red Hat obviously is taking them into account and saying, let's go and look at the vulnerable group, the people that are using the free stuff. Let's take some of their stuff away so that it benefits the less vulnerable people that are giving us money, basically. And I'm going to take the side of the vulnerable group in that scenario, pretty much 100% of the time. And that's just how I roll. So it sucks, but what can you do besides stop using Red Hat? Peace.